Thanks everyone for coming back. It's good to see you all. Good to see your faces. So let's dive right in. So I want to just kind of harken back real quick to my experience at a high school teaching at a Catholic high school, and some of you may not have been to the last one, so I'll briefly catch you up on the story. But I was doing one class on the church's teaching on gender ideology, and I ultimately said it has to do with truth and love. That Jesus Christ came into the world to reveal to us what it means to be human and what a human being is. He is the author of who we are, and I said there's a truth to that of where we came from and what we're made for, union with God forever. And the loving thing to do, which is to will the good for other people, is to help others go to their final destiny, union with God, which is their perfect freedom, perfect happiness. So here's another example is imagine I tried to get an orange or a banana with me, but I forgot to buy one. Imagine this was an orange. And imagine if I was peeling this orange and I threw the actual orange away and I just started eating a 9 on the peel. And imagine if a lot of people were doing that. You know, the loving thing to do wouldn't be to say, hey, Brendan, you do you. You like the peel, keep eating the peel. No. The loving thing to do is say, Brendan, you're missing out on the juice and the glory that's inside. You're missing out on the best part. So love is to help others live within the truth of who they are, which sets them free. And again, this is in the long run. We're made for union with God, and our hearts are restless until they rest in Him. So I was in this class, and I was talking about love and truth, and one woman in the back raised her hand and said, Brendan, I disagree with you. I don't think, if someone is experiencing gender dysphoria, that they think they're in the wrong body. It's not loving to tell them that they're wrong. And I said back, please don't take this in the wrong way, but it's not loving to affirm a lie. And they started getting frustrated and emotional, and they said, Brendan, there's research that has been done that states that if we don't affirm, suicide rates are gonna go up. And I said, no, there are actually no well-done long-term study research that shows that. And I was like, if you have something, feel free to send it my way, because I have not seen it. So instantly, boom, they flipped up their laptops, they started going, shot me an email. I looked up the study, and it was vague, and it did not back up their claim. After class one day, they came up to me, and they said, Mr. McCauley, we just think you need to be way more sensitive, on this topic. And I was just trying to listen to them and listen to their emotions, and they said, because Mr. McCauley, there's a person in our class whose parent has fully surgically transitioned. And at that moment, I realized, okay, this is so personal. This is so personal. And we started talking, and we talked about the research that they sent me, and I asked if they wanted to see some of the research that I have, and they didn't. And even their sign of not wanting to see kind of the information that I had was just showing me that they were not in a place, they're not in a place to really hear the truth. And it could be argued that, no, I stood up for the truth in the church's teaching, and as gently and as lovingly as I could, and they just simply rejected it. But there's also, we have to discern when the right time, manner, and place is for us to reveal the truth. And it's not saying that we're dispensing with the truth. No, we always have that. We always have truth and love united, because you can't have one without the other. This is what Pope Benedict states. Love without truth devolves into sentimentality, but truth without love becomes cold and calculated. So we have to hold both together, because every person deserves to know the truth. So we have to kind of really discern, say it's a child of ours or a friend of ours, or it could be a coworker. We have to kind of discern, where is this person at when we begin to approach them? Because I want to share a story about someone who opened up their heart to me. And it had to do with same-sex attraction. I was friends with this person And we had a couple friend groups, and I gained his trust through just our friendship. And one day we were all hanging out, and I asked him a question. You know, if you could ask God anything in the world, if you could ask God anything, what would you ask him? And he paused, and then he started to cry without saying any words yet. And I was a little confused. And he said, I would ask God why he creates gay people. And he started crying more, and he told me, Brendan, how he said it was, I'm gay. I experience same-sex attraction. And I'm just listening. And he said, I was experiencing this as a young teen. And even before that, I remember experiencing this attraction to the same sex. And I ended up telling my parents. I told my dad. And my dad blatantly rejected me as his son, that I'm a disappointment. And right after that, his relationship with his family was severed. And I'm just seeing this man crying and revealing to me these vulnerable places of his heart. And absolutely, it would not be right for me to say, hey, you know what the catechism says in 2357 about same-sex? No. For me, right then and there, is to just listen and to know that I care about him. All right? That does not mean I'm affirming if he was in a lifestyle of acting out, right? The church always says the attraction or inclination, sure, is an intrinsic or objective disorder, but it's not yet a sin until the act of the will takes place. So right then and there, I knew I needed to just listen, that my tone of voice when I talked to him were greater than his words, greater than words that I might have said. The tone of voice is greater than words that I might have said. So there needs to be what Jason Everett says, a reverent curiosity with people who might experience same-sex attraction or gender dysphoria, a reverent curiosity. Ask questions that he says, such as, what do you mean when you say I am gay or I am lesbian or I feel like I'm in the wrong body? What do you mean? What does it mean when you say I'm a boy and not a girl? To begin asking questions. When did you start to feel this way? Can you remember the first time? Can you point that out? What might have been happening in your life at that time? If someone says, I feel like I'm in the wrong body, well, how many people have you shared that with? And what's been the response? Have you looked online? Have you told your teachers, your friends? What has their response be? It's good to kind of take info of where this person really has been at with their dysphoria or with their certain attractions that they may have to then better respond. Because I'll tell you this, there's no one answer to this is exactly how you respond. There's one thing that's for sure, you got to hold truth and love together and pray, Lord, help me to act, help me to speak that reveals your truth and your love. Because Jesus was the best at it. And what did he do when there were sinners, when people wanted to stone them, when people said dispense of them? Well, they would approach him in faith, forgive me. What happened when the woman came in who was committing adultery and one of the Pharisees said, does Jesus know who this woman is and what she has done? Jesus says to the Pharisee, Simon, do you see this woman? Do you truly see her? Do you see her heart? Do you see her story, what she has been through? So he always approaches first and foremost with compassion. I'm here for you, particularly when a person wants to do the Lord's will, wants to make a change. But then he says, go and sin no more, a renewed life. So we have to see, okay, are we talking to people who they might be experiencing this but they want to do the Lord's will with a sincere heart? That's going to be a very different approach than someone that totally rejects the Catholic faith and Christianity completely. The first, I would say, there would be more of a friendship, a discipling, and a walking with compassion, but also revealing to them the church's teaching. And the other one, they may not even be open to hearing the truth. So we have to continuously discern that. We need clarity with charity. All right, that's the charitable thing to do, is make things clear. And so there was another man who contacted me after a talk and said, Brendan, I'd like to speak with you. And we hopped on a Zoom call. And he said, Brendan, I've never shared this with anyone, but I experienced same-sex attraction. What does the church have to do with me? What's God's plan for me? And I asked him, have you shared it with anyone? And he said, I've shared it with 2 priests in the confessional before. And this man was in his 30s. And he said, the first priest said, you've been through trauma. That's all he said. You've been through trauma. Have you been to therapy? And he walked out of that not feeling loved at all. And then he went to another priest and revealed his same-sex attraction he experiences. And the priest said, oh, you're fine. Don't worry about it. That's normal. And he was just in confusion. And so he said, Brendan, just be honest with me. What does the church teach in regards to my same-sex attraction? And I shared with him, with as gentle and humble as possible, what the church teaches, which we went over in last talk. And so if you weren't there at the last talk, please go back to that. But I just shared, this is what the church teaches, and that there is absolutely hope for you, that you are loved, that you are beloved, to affirm that in people, that we're not affirming certain attractions or certain actions. We're not affirming that. We're affirming the dignity and value of the person. And research has actually shown that attractions change over time. Because this man approached me, he's like, this is immutable. This is never, ever, ever going to change. Research has shown, no, attractions do change. There's actually deep hope for you, that the Lord wants you to have life and have it in abundance. So, clarity with charity. Jason Everett, he gives this great advice, same with Dr. Mary Hassan. I just want to shout them out really quick because some of this info I'm about to share has come from them. Is that they brought the approach, okay, what if I'm in a coworker, my child, a friend comes to me and says, I am beginning socially transitioning. That means name, pronouns, dress. Do you use their preferred pronoun? Say it was a boy, he, but now they want to be she. Do you use that? And this is what Dr. Mary Hassan says, that you want to make sure that they know you love them. I love you, but I can't say yes to calling you by these pronouns because I would feel like I wouldn't be honest with you. Feel like I wouldn't be honest with you, and I know that you would want me to be honest with you. Because affirming even pronouns, and that might not be, that's not to the point of cross-sex hormones or something like that, but it's still affirming something that is false within the human person as a unity of body and soul. And so, and it also, we don't know this in particular, but that affirmation could lead them to becoming more distressed with suicidal ideations. And so, like I said before, we need to continuously hold truth and love. And I recently spoke with someone who themselves has experienced gender dysphoria, and they shared with me that a lot of people that they know every single one that they know has been through trauma. That this is coming from, these are fruits of woundedness. Particularly first, the wound of our original sin, but it could be from a multitude of things, and it could be completely different for every person. The church says that very clearly about homosexuality and homosexual inclinations, that the origin is unknown. That we can say some things, but it's per story, it can be very unique. But we are all called to, every person, to inner healing. And so when we walk with people in the right time, we want to invite them to that. So I want to just share what I have learned, particularly from the John Paul II Institute on inner healing, with a movie, or not a movie scene. It is a show. I don't know why I didn't think of the word show, It's from a show. The show is Prince of Bel-Air. Some of you maybe have heard this before, so bear with me. Prince of Bel-Air. If you don't know Prince of Bel-Air, it's a cool show, a little older, but Will Smith is in it. Will, we have Will. Who's Will? Well, his father abandoned him when he was a little kid, and he grew up with Uncle Phil. When he was about 16 years old, though, his dad returned. And his dad's telling him, we're gonna go on vacations together. You know, I'm your father, you're my son, we're gonna have a great life together. And Will, this joy is just welling up in him. And they're planning on going on vacation. So Will gets all packed up, and while he's getting packed up, Will's father goes over to Uncle Phil and says, hey, I actually gotta go. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, can you just tell Will for me? I gotta leave. He's like, no, I'm not gonna do your dirty work. He's like, fine, I'll just call him on the road then. He's like, yeah, you do that. So while Will's father is walking out of the room, Will comes in, Daddy-o, what's going on? And his dad walks over to Will and says, you know, Will, we're gonna have to put our trip on hold. You understand, don't you? Got some business I need to attend to. He's like, sure. It's like, it was great to see you, son. He's like, you too, Lou. He's like, okay. His father walks out of the room. And Will starts joking around. He's like, gosh, I wish I just didn't buy this stupid present for him, Uncle Phil. And Uncle Phil's like, Will, it's all right to be mad. It's all right to be angry. He's like, why should I be mad? At least he said goodbye this time. He's like, Will, if there's anything that I could do, he's like, you don't need to do nothing, Uncle Phil. Ain't like I'm still 5 years old, you know. Ain't like I'm gonna be sitting up every night asking Mom, when's Daddy coming home, you know? Who needs him? He wasn't there to teach me how to shoot my first basket, but I learned, didn't I? I got pretty dang good at it too, didn't I? He's like, yeah, you did. He's like, I learned how to drive. I learned how to shave. I learned how to fight without him. I spent 14 great years without him. He never sent me a dang card. To hell with him. I didn't need him then. I don't need him now. You know what, Uncle Phil? I'm gonna get through college without him. Gonna get a great job without him. I'm gonna marry me a beautiful wife, have me a whole bunch of kids. I'm gonna be a better father than he ever was, because I sure as heck don't need him for that. There ain't a dang thing he could ever teach me about how to love my kids. Uncle Phil's just looking at him. And Will breaks down. How come he doesn't want me, man? How come he doesn't want me, man? And he's embraced right in that wound. When there is a wound in our hearts, whether that be abandonment, rejection, shame, confusion, hopelessness, all different wounds that we might have experienced, there is a lie that Satan whispers to attach ourselves and our identity to. You're not wanted, you're not enough, you're not seen, you're not lovable. For Will in this scene, it's, how come he doesn't want me? I'm not wanted. And if we want to begin first our own healing, but accompany others on their own healing journey, we need to renounce the lies in Jesus' name. I renounce the lie that I'm not wanted. That's a lie, because God gives us our identity. I announce the truth in Jesus' name that I am wanted, that I am beloved. We have to renounce the lies. We have to receive God's love and communion with others in those places of our hearts. Renounce the lies, receive love, and reconcile with God, with ourselves, and with others. Because what typically holds our woundedness and our pain is we have unforgiveness. We have resentment towards people that have hurt us, rightly so. They've taken something from us. And forgiveness is the heroic act that says, you took something from me, but I release you of the debt that you've inflicted on me. We need to renounce the lies. We need to receive love and communion, and we need to reconcile. And this is a long, lifelong journey and probably a lot of purgatory for me and you, but hopefully not too long. We need to, I'm going to say it one last time, renounce the lies, receive God's love and communion from others, and reconcile with God and ourselves. And lastly, the greatest tool that you could ever do when accompanying others, pray. It's not your job to fix yourself. It's not your job to fix others. You can play a role, and be God's instrument, but pray. And a great example of this is St. Monica, Augustine's mom. If you know St. Augustine, he was the man who had concubines. He was the man who entered Manichaeism, great heresies going on in the early church. But his mom tried her best to love him, but at about 16, 17 years old, she bursted out of anger and frustration towards Augustine. "You're not allowed back in our house." And with great anger that she had, perhaps unjust anger, he left. That severed their relationship. She felt so bad, and for decades on, she began praying and praying and praying to God. And one bishop told Monica, "Monica, where Augustine is at, it is better to talk to God about Augustine rather than talking to Augustine about God." I'm going to say that one more time. So powerful. The bishop said to Monica, where Augustine is at right now, it's better to talk to God, dialogue with God about Augustine and your son, rather than talking to Augustine about God. He's not ready to hear the truth. First, they need a restoration of their relationship, a trust built before certain dialogues and communication can happen. And she prayed and she prayed. And what do we know about Augustine? He cried under the tree and had a remarkable conversion. And the story goes as he ran inside to his mother, told her the whole experience, that there was infused in my heart something like the light of full certainty, and all the gloom of doubt vanished away. And her mother leapt for joy, and she blessed God, who is able to do far more abundantly than all that we ask or think. Scripture says, Ephesians 3:20, that the Lord is able to do far more abundantly than all we could ask or think. For decades she prayed, and a year later, after his conversion, she passed. Think about that, for decades. In a world that rejects God, you will be spiritually crucified by upholding truth and love. Because there's one man who did it perfectly, who talked to people perfectly, Jesus Christ. And what did they do? They spat at him, they whipped him, and they killed him. I've tried to get around that. Lord, is there a way to do this just right? Is there a way to accompany me just right? There is, but people will still crucify you for it. Be not afraid to uphold the truth of who we are, because it's the truth that sets us free. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.